The action took place in the public security of Jiang City, in the interrogation room. A first-rank police officer named Su Finch entered this room. Just seeing the light out of the corner of his eye, the prisoner immediately hysterically asked to close the door. Going inside and closing the doors behind her, Su told him to calm down. And now he can tell her what happened, but the man refused to talk because they wouldn't believe him. Su angrily said that there was no need to pretend to be a fool because in any case he would not escape criminal liability. He should remember what he did to his own family. In a very frightened voice, the man said that there was something behind the woman. But turning around, Su did not see anything unusual behind her. Then she turned to the prisoner and said that there was nothing there. In response, the man crawled under the table, but Su did not like the circus he created and asked him to stop. But it seemed to the man that the whole room was filled with some strange, red eyes. And even Su herself looked to him like a terrible and scary monster. Unable to bear the level of such fear, the man put his hand down his throat, but Su asked him to stop. The guy asked what happened next, to which Derek replied that when the police had already come running. The man has already killed himself, they say that he bit off his tongue and that's why he died. David said that he would not be able to sleep after such a horror story, but Derek said that this was not a horror story, but a real story that had spread all over the internet. In addition, Derek said that all this happened because of one photo on the internet. Whoever sees this photo will die. Out of fear, David asked what kind of photo this was. He said that he would find it now. But after a second it dawned on David that if this was all true, then they shouldn't look at this photo. The guy sitting next to them asked if this was the photo they were talking about, after which he showed them a photo of a large and red eye on his computer. From what they saw, those two were seriously frightened, because if that legend is true, then they will die. But Jack said everything would be fine and they shouldn't worry so much. Hugging each other out of fear, they asked why he was so sure of this. Jack said that if it were true, you would have ended the world a long time ago, after which he got up from the table and said that he still had things to do. David and Derek asked why he was leaving so early, because he wouldn't study anyway, to which he replied that he would sit with them some other time. It was already evening outside. Jack had just returned to his home. He was an ordinary university student who lived a very ordinary life. Until a month ago, he heard some strange voices in the library. He was very curious, so he opened a book called Urban Legends. And then, he found himself in another world, and became a student at Jiang City High School. His parents in this world died in a plane crash. We will leave him an inheritance and insurance compensation. By doing this, they saved him from any worries. But because of that book, he only has 30 days left to live. According to the rules from the book, he must write down urban legends and get points for good and evil. This way he can prolong his life. Jack examined this book and noticed that as soon as the legend was written down, it immediately came to life. The first legend he wrote was about a daughter and mother who lived next door and were killed in a violent manner. One day, a photo of a huge eye was published on the internet. After seeing this photo, it ultimately drives a person to suicide. As soon as someone sees this photo, violence immediately begins in his family. But the guy noticed another strange circumstance. The experience of someone who looked at the photo and who was then followed by the eye were written down in text on the page of this book. Each legend gave its own good and evil points, as well as legend points. Their number determines how many days his life will last, but with this story he received too little, because from 30 days he was able to extend his life to 92 days. If anything, he needs a new story to compensate. Otherwise, the number of days of his life in the book may reach 0. And then, Jack is afraid that he might actually die. The action took place in Jiang City High School, in Class K. The guy had to sleep even during classes, which is why he often woke up at the end of the school day. After all, it takes him a long time to come up with an effective story that will bring him more days to live. He believed that it was useless to look for inspiration in the society of ghosts, because they only laze around or play computer games. Jack decided to send someone a message that he would not be coming today. He apologized for not coming because he was too tired, because he had not slept all night, so he would rather go home. But the guys in the community were clearly not very happy to learn that Jack would not join them once again. They joke, not knowing that it is a matter of life and death. Walking down the street, he noticed how, in a small alley, a gang of guys were beating one student because he complained about them to the teacher. That guy said that he really made a mistake. He said that it wouldn't happen again, and asked not to hit him again. Jack shouted to them, "Aren't they ashamed to fight 5 against 1? The one who beat that guy asked Jack who he was and whether he really wanted to die. Well, of all of them, only one guy recognized Jack. He anxiously called his name. Jack, in turn, was surprised whether anyone from a bunch of these idiots really knew him. One of the guys immediately began to persuade the main bully to leave, because this guy was just crazy. Then he added that last semester, 5 of them dealt with him, but 3 ended up in the hospital, and 1 still does not go to school. After hearing this, everyone began to look at Jack with apprehension and fear in their eyes. In the end, they all got scared and said that they were hungry and would rather go and eat. The guy, named Kevin, thanked Jack for his help, but in the end, it was Jack who thanked him for the inspiration he received. Upon arriving home, Jack immediately sat down at his computer. He thought about school bullying, no matter in what world, but he understood that bullying exists everywhere. Bullies most often offend those who do not have the strength to respond in kind, or those who do not have support. But if he can give a weapon to victims of bullying, he can dig up the deep-seated seed of violence. His next legend was that every night, at exactly midnight, on a website called the Kingdom of the Dead, the names of people gripped by anger would appear. On the same site, you can see a girl from the underworld. Her name is Olivia Northwest. It was said, "Don't dare show up at school, so why is he here again?" She is so ugly that the girl did not understand why she even went to school, because in her place, she would have died a long time ago. All they did was mock this girl. They even took pictures of her in such a terrible way. Emma noticed that Caroline even managed to get angry and resist. Taking out a flower from her briefcase, Caroline said that she forced her. Caroline said out loud several times her wishes for Emma to die. But the girl doubted that she could kill her with some kind of flower. Then she tore the last petal from the flower. Almost at the same second, Emma began to look like some kind of monster. It turned out that the girl died and became a ghost, after which her whole body hurt terribly. She asked for help. But instead of at least trying to help her, all her friends simply ran away. And so they ask Carolina if the person in that video is her. Carolina replies that it's really her in the video. It turns out that she was sitting in the principal's office of a high school in Jiang City. She was told that to date, the number of abnormal deaths in the city has exceeded 200. All those deaths were the same as for everyone else. The brain was dead, but no indicators of violent death were found. And she is the only one detained who is suspected by the special department. The director asked her if she really communicated with a girl from the afterlife, and then asked her to tell her more about it. This was the head of the special department, the only one who could help Caroline at the moment, so he should be talkative. She said that a few days ago, a post was published on the forum that contained information about an urban legend, a girl from the afterlife. Caroline waited until midnight the next day, went to that forum and followed the link, and everything opened. She wrote in the window that came up asking who needed help, and Caroline wrote Emma's name there. She also understood that she shouldn't have done such things, because if the legends don't lie, then a person can even die. Well, one day, Caroline approached the teacher with a request to help her, to which the teacher replied that she should think about why they targeted her, and she should also think about her behavior. Her mother constantly beat her at home, because she made a lot of efforts to get her accepted into this school, but she just wants to leave there. And at school, she was constantly bullied by girls and classmates. She was already fed up with this, so she took advantage of the help of a girl from the afterlife. But a few seconds passed after sending Emma's name, and nothing happened. The girl was upset, because she thought that relying on an urban legend was stupid. Suddenly the girl felt somehow uneasy. She began to feel dizzy. And a second later she saw a girl in front of her. Caroline asked her if this girl was the same one from the afterlife. She replied that she was indeed that girl from the afterlife. Olivia said she came to help Caroline. She gave her some kind of flower and said that when she picked the petal, they would make a contract. And the person against whom Caroline harbors a grudge will be sent to hell. But if she uses it, she will eventually end up there too. After all, the curse of others is reflected in her karma. Her soul will no longer be able to go to heaven. Therefore it will live in torment in hell. In any case, whether to use this flower or not depends only on Carolina. She said that by the time she woke up in the real world, she was already in the bedroom. The assistant asked if Caroline knew what happened next. With her special vision, the director noticed that there was some kind of curse on the girl's heart. Was this really the price for murder? She was asked if she had communicated with anyone else in the last 2 days, or if anything strange had happened. The girl replied that nothing had happened. Evelyn assumed that the curse only affected people who entered into a contract. Her assistant's spiritual power level is too low. She will not be able to discern the curse. Only Evelyn herself will be able to. The assistant was surprised. Had the head of the department discovered something? Was she really going to use the thief's hand? It is rumored that this hand can steal everything, be it physical or conceptual. Evelyn said that he will try to lift the curse from Caroline. But the price of this technique is that when using it, you yourself are left without something, and this is not clothing or other consumables. She may well lose some organs in her body, be they vital or not so vital. Suddenly, while draining the cursed energy from the girl's heart, something went wrong and the energy they were trying to drain from her was released. The energy was quite strong, so it even broke the windows in the director's office. Even Jack himself, who was at school at the time, drew attention to all this. He heard how Emma's death was discussed at school, and someone saw how Caroline, who was in the same class, was called to the principal. Some knew that Emma was bullying her, and some assumed that the information from the forum about a girl from the afterlife was true. Jack saw that her name was actually written down in his book. Caroline, this is the first girl who met a girl from the afterlife. He won't get as many points for bullying people as he does for domestic violence, but more than 100 students have died due to bullying in just a couple of days. The guy decided to add spiritual powers to himself in exchange for points of good and evil. After adding 1 point, he felt different. But when I added 9, I suddenly reached my limit and lost my composure. When Jack woke up this morning, he noticed that his auditory and visual skills had improved markedly, and he had become more resilient. It seemed to him that if he continued to write legends, he would become truly special. The director said that the curse was very strong, because it was connected to the soul, but, fortunately, it did not affect others. But soon people from the department would come and take her away. But she said that in the report she would indicate that Caroline acted in self-defense. The girl thanked her. But suddenly, just as Evelyn was about to leave, she felt someone closely watching her. Turning around, she didn't see anyone, there was only Caroline there, who asked if everything was okay. But she still had the feeling as if someone was watching her. Jack had to hide. He was surprised that she could see curses too. Does this woman also have magical powers? He didn't understand who she was. Was it really from public safety? It seemed they had come to sort out the matter. And the girl from the afterlife. But under no circumstances should he be allowed to find his book for her. After all, if they see her, then most likely the end will come to him. And literally a moment later, he saw someone coming out from around the corner, which meant that he had been found. It turns out that these were his friends who had not seen him for quite a long time, because he runs away all the time as soon as classes are over. They asked him to go with them to the gaming club. Jack said that they first needed to let him go, and then they would go normally. Seeing all this, the headmistress thought that she was making things up and it was a false alarm. Suddenly someone called her, and after a moment she said that she was ready to go. Even having reached the gaming club, they still continued to hold him, because they were afraid that he would run away. Because only 3 people are allowed in the gaming club, and no less. The guy apologized for being very busy in recent days, and for the fact that they could not go to the gaming club without him. The guys asked Jack what he could do besides sleep. Jack replied that he was writing stories. They immediately started asking him what genre he wrote his stories in and asked him to show them. Jack replied that he writes his stories in the supernatural genre. As soon as they heard this, they immediately began to beg Jack to show them, because David was a bookworm and Derek loved the supernatural. But Jack said that he only had drafts with him, and then asked him to at least wait until he finished. And he was also thinking about whether he should show them his book. Derek said he has a lot of ideas to inspire Jack. The first thing he started talking about was an urban legend that recently appeared on the forum, and it's called A Girl from the Underworld. They are trying to inspire Jack with his own story. The guy said that it will not be easy, but they were unable to load the site because there were problems with the internet. David tried to log in from his phone, but even so, he couldn't. It turns out that the problems were not with the network, most likely the forum was simply blocked. Jack suspected that this was all the work of those two. He immediately started running. None of the guys understood what was happening, why he was leaving them again. The guy ran through the entire school and suddenly came across Kevin, who was again being bullied by those same guys. They again offended him for complaining about them to the teacher. The guys, as soon as they saw Jack, immediately became wary, and Kevin himself, in tears, asked him for help. Running past Kevin, Jack said that he couldn't, because he was in a hurry, after which he apologized. Kevin clearly did not expect this turn of events. One of the guys hit Kevin. Did he really think that Jack would always cover him? After all, everyone knows that Jack is a man of mood, and he does what he wants. If he was in that mood, he might help Kevin again someday. But Jack himself was only worried about those two not going far. He looked again with his unusual vision, but saw only students chatting about various things. But they were nowhere to be seen, and if hellish communication was turned off, then they represented a serious threat to Jack. Jack said that he definitely needed to figure out their identities, otherwise he would be tied hand and foot. Thus, he will not be able to extend his life and will simply die. As it turned out, people from public safety actually blocked the R forum to prevent new victims. The director praised the employee for her excellent work, and then asked if they managed to turn off the hellish communication. Difficult, the employee replied that this is exactly what they were unable to do. The head of the department began to suspect that this website was being protected, after which Evelyn ordered the premises to be cleared so that all people left the building. She will try to block this website at midnight tonight. A series of suicides was transferred to a special department. The special department reports to the highest analytical center of the Public Security Department, and specializes in various types of strange incidents. It was already almost midnight. The assistant asked Evelyn if everything was really that serious. The headmistress asked how many days she had been training. The girl replied that her preparation lasted only 3 days. Evelyn said that it turns out that she was sent a newcomer. The assistant said that she was not going to hide this from her, because she would have found out anyway. But Evelyn told her not to worry, because all the experienced workers had already died. Evelyn asked the assistant if she had taken courses on others, ghosts and everything like that. The girl replied that, of course, she had. Ghosts are the souls of people who died either from old age or for some other reason. Basically, they do not pose a danger. As a rule, they immediately stop them, but there are other ghosts who had a strong resentment or anger during their lifetime. Having encountered such a ghost, it must be eliminated immediately, but if your strength is not enough, you should run as far as possible. But she believes that Mrs. Evelyn can solve all the problems. Evelyn decided to tell her assistant one fact, that for people, others are not only something incomprehensible, but also something immortal. After all, only someone else can kill someone else, and no one else. What about people? They can only note the strange circumstances of the death of people. You need to keep your distance from others, but at the same time, find a way to prevent further murders. Her preparation was only 3 days, because rookie assistants are usually expendable here. Evelyn said that in the morning at school she was supposed to check the girl for curses, but because she was too weak, she did not notice anything. Then she moved the mouse over the enter key and told her to release her spiritual power, and pressed the key. And she shouldn't worry, because if she dies, her family will receive a pension of 5 million. Naturally, she can refuse, not press the key, leave this room, and then resign from the special department. But gathering her strength, the assistant still pressed enter. They were immediately enveloped in destructive magic that destroyed half of the office. Evelyn's shabby assistant asked her if they had finished what they were supposed to do. After all this, an error appeared on their computer screen. Evelyn suggested that it wasn't that bad. Immediately after these words, a girl appeared on the screen of their monitor. But they both did not expect to see this. The assistant completely hid behind Evelyn. Since hellish communication is disabled, this may be some kind of warning. After seeing this, Evelyn immediately turned around and said that the assistant had performed well today and wished her success. If this was a warning otherwise, then this is the greatest discovery since the creation of the special department. But the very idea that something else could control the mind, Evelyn hoped that she was wrong. Evelyn called her colleague, Eric, asking for help with the investigation of the case of the girl from the afterlife, and for him to look at the photo of the red eye. He must have heard that more than 200 people died because of this girl from the underworld, and according to the information, whoever sees those photos will die in agony. After all, in any case, even if he looks at the photo, he will not die. In this case, Eric suggested making a deal. He thinks it's better to investigate everything together, so to speak. He will become her traveling companion on the road. Evelyn agreed to his proposal, but said that first he must deal with the case of the girl from the afterlife, because it is very serious. Then she said that the Department of Public Security was already here, so she hung up. Meanwhile, 10 minutes ago, Jack was thinking that as soon as those two left the school, the forum was immediately closed so as not to spread the legend about the girl from the afterlife. Also, Jack is not sure that they will be able to stop the hellish communication. Most likely, those two belong to some organization involved in the investigation of paranormal phenomena. At exactly midnight, a red window appeared on Jack's screen, which meant that the site was not blocked. Seeing this, Jack was very happy because they failed to block the hellish communication, which means that they will not have enough strength to subdue the girl from the afterlife. But what really interested Jack was how these two were connected to the special department. He even tried to find information about the city's special department, but even on large forums and websites there was no information. Jack believed that in any case they should not be taken lightly, but if he wanted to continue living, he could not allow them to trample the other he created. Exhaling, Jack said that he needed to continue cultivating his spiritual power. But he should be careful, because last time, he reached the limit of his own body. He didn't know what might happen this time, that he might no longer be able to keep everything under control. As he added more spiritual strength to himself, Jack felt his body begin to swell, as if his strength was overwhelming him. But Jack realized that this was most likely his soul growing. After the transformation, there weren't even any side effects. On the contrary, he felt better. But suddenly Jack was overcome by a strange feeling, as if someone was watching him. In fact, he had felt someone's gaze on him from time to time before. But now, thanks to the increase in the level of spiritual power, he he can clearly sense where the gaze is coming from. He forgot that this box was in the closet. Something that was inside this box was watching Jack. Jack asked why he was so nervous. Then he added that he shouldn't worry so much, because he created it. But when he opened the box and saw what was inside, Jack was horrified, to put it mildly. Without thinking for a second, he kicked this box with all his might. It turned out that in the box there was a terrible monster with red eyes, like in that very photo. In Jack's memories, this monster used to look much cuter. Jack used to take care of him like a child, even feeding him while he was watching cartoons. But as soon as Jack tried to feed him, he immediately hid in the box. Jack asked him if he wanted to go for a walk because he had been sitting in his box long enough. But all he did was shake with fear, sitting in the box. The guy said that he looked scary, but in reality, he was just an ordinary kid. In this case, Jack said that he would rather eat himself. Immediately after these words, his phone rang. He was told that they were now showing a presenter on TV who was broadcasting about the murders of a girl from the afterlife. And today, he wants to meet a girl from the wide world live. It was some kind of crazy-looking guy who said that in a few minutes, and he could start. And he was going to give people a real show. But now many say that after entering a name into the chat of hellish communication, the girl from the afterlife never appears. That crazy guy suggested that all this might not be true, and that the girl from the afterlife did not exist at all. But maybe this is all due to the fact that the conditions of her call were not met. After all, in order to call on it, a person's heart must be filled with anger and resentment, and the person must be driven into a corner. He said that this is the rule of calling a girl from the afterlife. Jack looked at him with a smile on his face. Did that fool really think that he really understood the rules for summoning a girl from the afterlife? Well, in that case, he wishes him good luck, because everything is not as simple as it might seem at first glance. Meanwhile, even Evelyn herself and Eric were watching this live broadcast. Evelyn ordered a squad of her people to prepare to interrupt the broadcast and arrest the man. Eric asked if she really thought that crazy guy was telling the truth. Evelyn fully admitted this possibility. A few days ago, the squad discovered several experimenters who tried to summon a girl from the afterlife, but failed because they did not have enough resentment. She suggested that this madman might be preparing to call a girl from the breast world. After all, even if ordinary people do not have spiritual power, they should not be underestimated. People who are able to understand the rules and survive are stronger than some mentors who have spiritual power. There could still be people who don't believe in it, so they invite everyone to see it with their own eyes. At exactly midnight, the man pressed enter, and a screen appeared asking him how she could help him. The man was very happy that he succeeded. He immediately went to the phone and began to correct it, saying that in this position the audience could not see anything. After which he told them to wait, because soon they would all see the girl from the afterlife. But immediately after he wanted to enter someone's name, the broadcast was cut off. Jack decided to look in the book to see if he had any information about that man. Suddenly, everything in Jack's room lit up with a red light. Looking at the book, he asked if it was his little monster. But when he turned around, he saw there a girl from the afterlife. After a moment, he realized that this was a girl from the afterlife, and asked her why she appeared to him. It was Kevin. The guys were bullying him again. While he was trying to get out of the closet, his phone, which he was trying to reach, fell out. He said that they will all die, and if the girl from the afterlife really exists, then he wants her to take them all. One of the hooligans heard that the legend about a girl from a vast world has been quite popular lately. Did this idiot really decide to write to her his name? He already said that if he dares to do this, then the guy will send Kevin to the next world without hesitation. After which he said that he was also interested in whether this legend was true, and added that even Jack did not help him, although he saw how Kevin was suffering. Kevin must hate him for leaving him in the lurch, to which Kevin shouted with great anger that he really hated him for what he had done. He cursed him and hated him. Because of him Kevin was beaten then. Could the urban legend that Jack himself had created kill him was the only question running through his head. He directly asked her if she had come to take him to the afterlife. The girl replied that despite the fact that his name was indicated in the hellish communication, she could not take him away. Because he is outside the rules, the contract has been signed, he can decide the outcome of what is happening. He can cancel the contract and tell the person who wrote his name to hell. Jack breathed a sigh of relief and then asked who sent his name. The girl said it was Kevin, but Jack did not immediately understand who she was talking about. Jack was afraid that he would tell about seeing a girl from the afterlife, but for some reason she didn't take Jack with her, and he might have big problems. If he terminates the contract, he will understand that Jack did not get to the afterlife, and people from the special department will be set on him. In this case, Jack ordered Olivia to take Kevin to the afterlife. But first he wants to see him. Olivia said that she will carry out his order. Suddenly Kevin woke up in a boat, in a place unknown to him. When he woke up, he saw a girl from the afterlife. Frightened, he said that everything should not be like this. He wrote in Jack's name, and he should have gone to the afterlife, and not Kevin himself. Suddenly, a demon appeared right next to Kevin and asked if this guy's name was Kevin. He asked why he wrote down the name Jack. But the guy didn't understand why they were asking him about this, because he wasn't ready to die yet. After which the guy said that he understood everything, Jack just wants to take revenge on him. But suddenly, unknown forces began to strangle the guy, and the girl ordered him to answer the question. The demon grabbed his magic and lifted him high above the ground. The guy immediately shouted that he would tell everything. Jack helped him once when that bully was bullying him, but if he hadn't passed by the second time, Kevin wouldn't have gotten it from him again. The demon asked him if he was just offended by Jack, and then pulled him towards him. Kevin did not know that the girl from the afterlife was created by this demon, but now he must answer for everything. After all, instead of directing this weapon at the true cause of his pain, he directed his hatred at everyone. The demon said that the bully who bullied Kevin would also get what he deserved, but Kevin himself would not escape punishment. Kevin tearfully begged to stop all this and to spare him, because he had already realized that he had made a mistake. He repeated this phrase several more times, after which he saw some kind of red light in front of him. And then he woke up at home, safe and sound. Evelyn said that the flower did not emit any spiritual energy except cold, and then asked Eric to use spiritual power. Using spiritual power, Eric tried to touch the flower, but he received a burn. Evelyn concluded that only the recipient can touch the flower, and otherwise there is no benefit from it. Also, Evelyn said that when she tried to remove the curses from the student, her glasses told her that she would die if she did anything unnecessary. Eric asked her if she would really drag even him into this matter. Evelyn replied that the plan had not yet been formed, because he still had the opportunity to leave. After which Eric said that he was just joking, and they shouldn't waste time, because they need to take this guy to a special department. Well, in the book it was written that Eric experiences fear and anxiety, despite the smile on his face. They have already been able to find out everything, but fortunately, they cannot do anything yet. Olivia told Jack that she had another task. He replied that in that case she could go. At the same time, in the special department, that man called Eric a murderer, but Evelyn did not understand why an ordinary person would harbor such a grudge against him. He replied that he killed his daughter. Evelyn asked if it was because of the supernatural. Eric replied that that was exactly what happened. It happened when he first entered the service. While walking around the shops, he felt a faint, strange energy emanating from his daughter. After all, in those days he terribly hated anomalies. As soon as he stood up, she immediately noticed him. He thought that she had died long ago, but her body was taken over by something unknown. Therefore, we had to kill her, but before her death she said the word, found. The man continued to accuse Eric of murder, but Eric said that he had the opportunity to take revenge. He can start a hellish communication and write his name there, and Eric will immediately go to the afterlife. The man did not understand why Eric had not yet been captured, because he killed a man. Turning around and looking at Evelyn, Eric told them all to leave the room. Standing outside the door, some did not understand why they were not allowed to enter. Evelyn replied that none of them were allowed to be there, because everything was top secret. They must not know, but in a special department there is a certain death file. If you have photographs, name and date of birth, you can make a person die. And the only right decision for that man is death. Suddenly, Evelina saw strange spiritual energy leaking from the office. Opening the doors, she saw there a girl from the afterlife, standing next to the man who had given him that very flower. The girl from the underworld turned around and noticed Evelyn. Then, in turn, being frightened, she immediately closed the doors. Well, behind her assistant she saw the same girl from the afterlife. Everyone immediately began asking Evelyn what happened, what she saw there. Evelyn said it was most likely a warning that they were allowed to enter, but she hoped she was wrong. After all, if another sent such a warning, then this means that she has consciousness. At the time she entered the room, Eric was already in the afterlife. Since the path of life could not be verified, Olivia wanted to look at something. She touched her finger to Eric's forehead, and he immediately felt an unpleasant sensation. While he was flying, his entire body was enveloped in black souls. And then, he saw the very creator of the afterlife right in front of him. After which he found himself back in the boat, shrouded in fear. Seeing the demon again, he admitted that he was scared, very scared. His courage, bravery, and willpower were all undermined. This is what it means to go to real hell. And after that, he was in a boat and was thrown down from a huge waterfall. And finally he woke up in the real world. Evelyn immediately asked him what he discovered. He said that he felt like he was enveloped in darkness all the time, all 5 senses were lost, as if he had become just a soul without a shell. Eric admitted that he was incredibly scared, because the girl from the afterlife had consciousness. He said that the girl from the afterlife seemed to warn him. Then he added that there was another very strange thing that he could not see. He was horrified, because the girl from the afterlife has consciousness, she can think and make decisions, but she kills people only according to the rules. Evelyn said that if this were the case, if she joined forces with someone else, it would be the end of the world. She said that she would immediately report everything to her superiors. Jack said Olivia warned them, but she shouldn't let them figure out their rules. If she killed him, they would be in big trouble. Even though Eric thinks that he escaped from the afterlife thanks only to his abilities. But if there were no loopholes in the rules, nothing would work out, so Jack needs to become stronger in order to improve the rules. Jack asked Olivia if Eric would have been able to escape the afterlife if he had not intervened. She replied that he would not have been able to. But Jack didn't understand why this was so, because in fact he had not died yet. Olivia said that she fulfilled her terms of the contract. According to her rules, he is dead, because his soul went to the afterlife. It turns out that if a person's soul is in the afterlife, he is dead, and even if he knows about it, this cannot be changed. In this case Eric most likely split his soul. Or he developed some kind of ability that slipped out of Olivia, who wanted to say something to Jack at the time. She asked him, pointed to the book, what the word God meant. The action took place in a special department, on the 3rd floor, underground. A man entered a room in which there was a glass with a red thread attached to it. When he entered the room, this glass rose, and the man called it the voice of the world. He asked to tell him what this girl from the afterlife is. The voice of God answered him that this is the power of God that is growing. After which, he asked to tell him whether there were many similar things in their world. He replied that there is very little of this in this world. It was the head of Jiang City's special department, Edward. They designated the girl from the afterlife as a very dangerous other. So, the time has come for the people sitting in the special department, Squad 12, to vote. But one of the participants, named Anthony, did not want to vote. He assumed that he would be able to communicate with a girl from the afterlife. In response, Adrian asked him if he really thought that if he talked to her, she would agree to stop the killings. After all, a girl from the afterlife only follows her own rules. The first rule is that only people who harbor a strong grudge can contact her. The second, she appears at a certain time at night. The contract will be concluded after the person picks the flower given by the girl, and the last, the area of her abilities is limited to the city of Jiang. But Anthony still insisted and said that he wanted to contact her. But he felt the gaze of all the other members of the group on him. After which he immediately asked for an apology and said that he had really overdone it. Adrian said that he always admired people like Anthony because they need people like him. After which he said that they only have one life, and they shouldn't give in to emotions so much and lose their temper. Even if God cannot destroy the girl from the afterlife, he will consider his proposal. Anthony said this plan simply couldn't fail. Just as absolutely any evil spirits will fall before God, everyone will die, without exception. After all, God is the most inexplicable strangeness. The action took place in Jiang City High School. In the game room of the Ghost Society, there was a terrible crowd of people there. Some of the crowd even shouted that they were born to join the Ghost Society. But when they all turned around and saw Jack there, they said they had to run. A second later the whole crowd ran to Jack. They all wanted to join the gaming club. After 5 minutes, they still managed to break away from them. The guys were damn tired, except for Jack, which surprised David and Derek. So, what should they do now? The R forum was closed, and everyone immediately believed in the existence of a girl from the afterlife and ran to their club. Suddenly, some unknown girl approached them and said hello. Her name was Emily. She wanted to join the guys in the club. David, although not immediately, recognized her. She is a girl who had already submitted an application. The guys immediately started pestering her, asking her to meet her. She said she was interested in urban legends, but didn't fill out the registration form again to see if they could accept it without her. The guys said that, of course, they would accept it, because they really miss people who are interested in urban legends. Suddenly, everyone received a new message on their phone. Jack immediately asked her if she had many friends. The girl replied that she only had a group chat, after which she immediately started talking about the recently released game. The essence of this game is that a chat is created randomly, and people can share absolutely any of their stories. Many people play this game. It can relieve tension, amuse, or calm down, and it's called Your Turn. At home, Jack thought that his abilities belonged to the second level of spiritual power, so he could sense the supernatural. Is it really on this girl's phone that he suddenly noticed that the book says that if he feels something suspicious, then he should stay away from it? But Jack did not quite understand the essence of this warning. It looks like now he will actually have to participate in the training camp, in the gaming club. His little monster pounced on him and hugged him. Jack said that he should wait a little and he would definitely play with him. Closing his eyes with one part of his body, Little Eye divided into several parts. and the second part climbed onto the table in front of Jack. When Little Eye had almost climbed onto the table, he turned to Jack and told him to watch, after which it began to grow larger and glow red. And then he turned into a monster, with a huge red eye. Jack was happy because he had finally evolved. The guys came to an abandoned factory, outside the territory of the city of Jiang. There was a weak signal there, because this building is very old, and, of course, there is no connection there. But for the guys, the most important thing was that the beautiful Emily would come here, and someone else with her, but didn't they notice that she was behaving very strangely? And then Emily finally came and apologized for being late. The guys were happy when they heard her voice and were very happy to see her. But she did not come on her own, but with her friend, named James. The guys immediately got upset as soon as they saw him near Emily. They said they were just good friends. But as soon as they said this and looked at each other, they immediately became embarrassed. Derek and David immediately felt lonely. Jack began to suspect something, maybe the game Emily was talking about was not online. And he also didn't quite understand why create a game in which participants would throw out their negative emotions. Jack wondered whether Emily could even be considered a person. But Emily just really likes supernatural stories, and in this game, the gameplay is at the highest level, and all players are quite comfortable. The guys immediately supported her opinion and said that this method of playing was really cool. After which Jack warned them to be careful, because only recently a legend about a girl from the underworld had come out, but the guys said that they just wanted to make friends with her. But Emily and her friend began to press pity on the guys so that they would play this game with them. In the end, everyone agreed, and Jack went with them, because he understood that they would have a hard time without him. Immediately at the entrance to the building, Jack asked to introduce them to the rules of this game. But Jack still doubted, he didn't know if he was doing the right thing. After all, if your turn is really something paranormal, what are the rules in this game, and why are there different levels of the game? At the lowest level, you just need to tell some stories, and then it's your turn to speak, but at the highest level, at least 4 participants accept their fate. In a 4-player game, the person on the ground floor starts moving towards his neighbor, then he must tap him on the shoulder and tell him a story and move on to the next player. If there are more than 4 people, one of the players takes a free floor, and the game starts from the first floor, and so on until the last, 4th. After finding the first player, Derek began to tell his story to David. He has 2 brothers, and one day the older brother fell into the river and died, and then this happened to the other brother. Because he had insomnia when he went to bed, and therefore accidentally stabbed his brothers to sleep peacefully. And after what he did, he received no punishment. He said he was done and now it was David's turn to go up to the next floor. Jack was still waiting and waiting, but no one had yet come to his floor. And so, when Emily went up to his floor, he discovered that his phone was dead. Jack asked Emily if she had a phone charger. But instead of giving him a phone charger, she ignored him and started telling her story. One night, 4 guys were walking with a girl. It was raining heavily, and the guys quickened their pace, but the girl was in no hurry. Then the guys reached their destination, but were wet to the skin. And the girl who came later was completely dry. Emily asked Jack if he knew why she was completely dry. Jack replied that the girl had died and was lying in a coffin, and the others were carrying the coffin. The girl praised Jack and said that everything was right, after which she told him to return to the first floor and tell his story to number 1, because he was already waiting for him. And then she said the very phrase after which the next person tells the story. When Jack was about to go downstairs, he invited her to go with him. She said she couldn't go out with him like that because it was against the rules. Then she offered him her phone number, but Jack refused. Well, when the guy went down to the first floor, he found that all the guys were already outside, and even Emily. Jack asked her if she should have gone back to the 4th floor. Emily said that it was all because she was too scared, because after James came down from the 4th floor, they came to Jack. But Jack didn't answer, and he and James got scared and went back to the others. Jack was very surprised that he really didn't go up to the 5th floor. But in the end, Jack said that it was all just a joke and asked if he managed to scare them. The guys immediately started screaming that he couldn't even imagine how scared they were. But in response, Jack, smiling, said that this game was really exciting. And he said that if Emily is afraid, then today they can do it together. Shy, Emily asked what he meant. What Jack means is that the ghost community can overcome anything together. After all, in all the legends, truly strange things happened to the heroes after they were separated. But the girl refused Jack's offer and said that she did not feel very well, after which she said that she would rather return and go to bed. And with a sweet expression on her face, she asked James to take her home. So they went home, after which they agreed that they would meet tomorrow. David was very hungry and Derek was already looking forward to the next day so he could meet Emily again tomorrow. But Jack was only worried that if it wasn't Emilia who was telling him the story, then who would be? Suddenly, Jack excitedly told the guys that he urgently needed to go back and look at something. But the guys didn't understand why Jack even decided to return there. Jack really wanted to know who James and Emily were. But with their speed, the guys couldn't keep up with Jack, so he ran into an abandoned building alone. The action took place in the special department of Jiang City. Evelyn said that this time they need to find out more about the girl from the afterlife. Then she said that the person who spread the legend was found, looked through the crack, and he took this picture. Eric asked if the methods of the girl from the vast world had already been determined. Evelyn replied that they had not yet. The analytical department will soon produce results, and they will use this method only in extreme cases. They plan to replace the legend about the girl from the underworld with other ridiculous news, so that this legend becomes just another tale. But Eric said that as long as there are deaths, this legend will attract attention, isn't it so? Evelyn replied that gossipers would publish a ton of such material anyway. As long as they themselves were not affected by the consequences, they would not care. And she said that they shouldn't worry about it, because higher authorities and the analytical center will take care of it. Now they need to catch the person who distributed the photo of that eye. The action took place outside the city of Jiang, in some abandoned building. Evelyn questioned 35-year-old, unemployed Mikey about whether he took the photo. Eric grabbed him and beat him, after which he apologized and said that he shouldn't have run away from them. He said that he really took this photo, but he only took 2 photos, the rest was not his work. But Eric was not satisfied with such an answer. He said that he would pull out his hair until he answered differently. He said he got it from his girlfriend's house named Michelle. Mikey said they had a lot of fun that night. After which he wanted to go to the toilet and discovered that something was moving along the wall of her room. According to him, it was something strange. Mikey saw that it had crawled into the closet. Having opened the closet in her room, he found something there that could really scare him. When he opened the closet, he saw that inside, in a box, lay some kind of disabled child. 2 hours earlier, Jack, who was himself in an abandoned room, was looking for something in his book. Hearing some sound, he asked if it was Olivia. Meanwhile, behind Jack there was somehow a ghost. Jack felt someone's presence, but when he turned around, there was no one behind him. And again, Jack heard clear words that someone in this room really wanted to die. But the sound gave Jack a terrible headache. A second later, Jack no longer understood how he even ended up in this place. Derek and David, who were following Jack, stood in front of the entrance to the building, and still did not understand why they had come here in the first place. The actions took place in some elderly house. Someone knocked on one of the doors of the residents who were in that house. Michelle opened the door and asked who needed to barge into her apartment in the middle of the night. Evelyn asked the girl if her name was really Michelle. The girl saw that Evelyn had a badge on her chest, which indicated that she was an officer. Michelle asked why the officers were breaking into her home, since she had not been using anything, but Evelyn said that it was none of their business. After all, they are here to meet her son, after which she showed a photo of that disabled child. But the girl, with a terrifying expression on her face, said that this child had already died 2.5 months ago. Evelyn asked Michelle if she accidentally killed him. Michelle replied that she would not have done that, and by the time she returned home, he was already dead. After which the girl began to add justifying details. But Evelyn asked her with suspicion where his body was then. They arrived at their destination and dug up the child's body. It was a 5-year-old boy. He was badly damaged, most of it was turned into a skeleton, he had too many injuries. And he was so small. Eric asked Evelyn if she thought his mother regretted what she did. Evelyn replied that most likely not. After which she asked if Eric even paid attention to the details of the photo. This child did not die because of her careless handling. Evelyn just showed Michelle a photo of the eyeball. Most likely it will be difficult for her after this. The girl began to see many eyes everywhere, watching her. The head added that she could refer to her psychological illness, so you shouldn't trust her. It seems that Evelyn's guesses were correct. This child had been subjected to family violence for a long time. He hoped that these photographs would be circulated so that unscrupulous parents would realize everything. But Evelyn said that these photos should be hidden and the child's bones should be disposed of. Meanwhile, Jack wandered around the abandoned building alone. He behaved like a zombie and kept repeating only one phrase, that he really wanted to die. But thanks to the pendant he carried with him, he managed to get rid of such a zombified state. Hitting the ghost behind him, Jack said that he felt strange and urgently needed to leave. And on the way, he decided to ask his pet how he got here in the first place, after which he added that he shouldn't have followed Emily and James. Just a couple of seconds later, Jack froze in place and could not move. He was unpleasantly surprised by the fact that this strangeness was very strong. Suddenly, the phantom appeared on his phone and asked where Jack was going. Jack asked displeasedly who this ghost was, to which he replied, had he really forgotten him, he was on the 4th floor. He asked the ghost if this was Emily, if this was her territory, but the ghost did not understand what Jack was talking about. The ghost really wanted to finally meet Jack. Suddenly, in front of him, he saw coffins in which the guys were lying. By order of this ghost, they woke up and turned to Jack. Jack asked the guys to wake up, but then it seemed strange to him. How does he know their names? He has always been a loner. During these thoughts, the guys had already approached and touched Jack. And after the phrase, "your turn," Jack seemed to begin to lose himself. After these words, Jack completely lost control of himself. He was controlled by something else. Jack ended up in one of those coffins, too. And after he climbed into that coffin, he was already dead. Unexpectedly, even for Jack himself, he is resurrected at home. He immediately rushed to the mirror to see if it was real. But he remembers very well that he died then in that building. He was definitely killed by strangeness. But then he was resurrected. Jack remembers that in order to investigate the strangeness, he went into the building alone. And he also felt that he was missing something. It seems that his memories are missing very important details, and also, the little eye is also a strange thing. But he could not protect Jack. He decided to look in his notebook to see if there were any notes about this incident. It turned out that for each of his resurrections, days of his life would be taken away from him. Jack came to the Ghost Society Club, but it seemed that he was there alone, but he was surprised why, in that case, the gaming club still existed. Looking at the things around him, one could say that he was not alone here, but there were no traces of other participants in the school. Where did they all go? Why can't Jack remember their identities? Suddenly, a girl began to crawl out of the closet. It turned out that it was Jack's classmate. She greeted him, but Jack clearly did not expect to see her. Her name was Ashley, and she was very interested in ghosts, so she would like to join their club. But Jack said that he was the only member of this club and very soon it would be disbanded, so there was no point in joining there. Ashley said that she would listen to him. After which she added that there were other participants in the Ghost Society, but after they went to an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city, everyone disappeared. It turns out that this girl had been following them from the moment they arrived at the abandoned building, and wrote everything she saw in a notebook. After reading from her notebook, Jack finally remembered the guys. Jack decided to read further, maybe he would find something interesting. But the girl asked not to read it further and took the notebook from him. She said that there was no point in reading further. Besides, she really doesn't have any evil intentions, she just wants to join the Ghost Society. Jack, doubting whether she could be trusted, Jack still gave her a form to fill out to join the Ghost Society. After which he said that she would have an additional task, she must find more participants in the Ghost Society. The girl immediately agreed and said that she was already going to look. Jack said that she most likely still has the first rank of spiritual power and is still at the awakening stage, but these are her goals. After which Jack said that now this is not the most important thing that could be. The most important thing is that the game, Your Turn, must pay for everything. Ashley knew that the Ghost Society Club was the most useless place in Jiang City. That's why she came here, because by joining the club, she ensured her safety. After all, the head of the public ghost club is Jack, and he is the guarantee of her safety. He must complete his task so that the director does not close their club. This world is very dangerous, so she chose the path to follow Jack, or even better, to become his girlfriend. She said that she would closely monitor him. If he met her criteria, then in the future he would become her husband. Jack didn't like the fact that it had already been a day and the glasses hadn't been added yet. Maybe it was some kind of mistake, or maybe something had happened to Eyeball and Olivia. But the most important thing for Jack at this moment was to increase his own spiritual strength. Jack has successfully evolved to level 100 spiritual power. It seems he now has a new skill. He can attract objects within a radius of about 10 meters. Jack decided to test this skill on some pack from the table. The pack successfully attracted to his hand. Now he has the third rank of spiritual power, compared to the second rank. He now has many more advantages. But there are certain restrictions, but in any case, weaker creatures will have to obey him. Now Jack was thinking about creating a legend that could resurrect the dead, but he did not have enough legend points for this. It's worth noting that Derek, David, and James have never played the mobile version of the game before, Your Turn, except Emily. According to his memories, in descending order, they should have been Amelia, James, Jack, Derek, and David. But the order had changed. It was Derek, David, James, Emily, and finally Jack, and the number at the start of the game didn't matter. Maybe it's all about the order of the numbers in the game itself, but only Emily understood this. As far as anyone knows, the game ends as soon as everyone tells the stories. But why did Emily need to be taken to an abandoned building? Jack thinks that this is some specific territory. It turns out that the creature specifically ordered Emily to lure Jack into his territory. Had it really discovered his spiritual powers? After some time, Jack returned to his home, and at the entrance the little eye immediately began to hug him. Jack said that he still has a lot of doubts about this game. He is not even surprised that there is no more group chat. After all, in order to continue the investigation, he needs to take part again. But unlike other people, Jack has a kind of immortality. The eye guy took Jack's phone, after which he thought maybe things weren't so bad after all. After these words, Jack called Olivia. She asked him what she needed to do, but he grabbed her hand and told her to come with him. Only when they arrived at the site of that building, there was nothing there anymore. It seemed to have disappeared. Jack assumed that this game had originally altered his memories and that there had never been any building here. If this turns out to be true, then the enemy's force is too powerful. Olivia said that there was something here after all, because there was a smell. Taking Jack's hand, Olivia asked him to go back because it was too dangerous there. Jack was confused. He didn't know what to do, how to act correctly in this situation. After some time, she and Olivia finally returned home. Jack said that now they will play a game called Your Turn, but in a mobile version. According to Emily, there are restrictions on the number of players only in the advanced version of the game, while the standard version usually has 3 players. Then he said that Olivia would create a chat and become number 1, after which she would need to invite him an eyeball. The little eye will be number 2, and Jack will be number 3, after which he told them to watch very carefully, because Jack himself cannot see anything. But after 5 hours, after the start of the game, nothing happened. Jack told Olivia that the legend scores haven't been increasing lately, so is she facing some kind of problem? Olivia replied that no one had picked the flowers recently, and she also felt somehow uneasy. Then she added that she might disappear altogether. Suddenly they felt someone's presence outside the door of Jack's apartment. They were all wary, because they knew that it was the strangeness of the game that had come. It said that it was number 1's turn now. It was Olivia. But when Olivia approached this oddity, she was scared when she saw it. The strangeness of the game did not expect to see a second strangeness here. Olivia said she was stronger than that weird thing, but it was all because of the damn rules. But, unfortunately, Olivia cannot cope with it alone, but if Jack says the name of this oddity, then Olivia will get rid of it. And if not, then she cannot do anything about it, and in this case the likelihood of danger is high. Olivia is indeed much stronger than the other oddity, but she must stick to the rules to continue the game, so now no one can win. What will he do now? It's your turn. He will leave, or he will try to engage in battle with the big eye. But your game said that now it's number 2's turn. In any case, the little eye can end up in a drawer, and Jack will simply be resurrected. The spy, without hesitation for a second, grabbed the strangeness by the tentacles, after which he immediately began to attack the strangeness. But since the strangeness, your game, was also strong enough, it fought back the little eye. The spy didn't like this very much, and he got very angry. And already in a stronger physical form, he again grabbed the strangeness by the tentacles. Then he took it and without any effort simply swallowed it. Jack was very surprised and at the same time delighted, because the little eye exceeded all his expectations. He was worried about his safety, but it seems that he is clearly not in danger. It seems Jack underestimated him. Now some changes had to happen, maybe even the combination of rules had changed. From now on, the legend, Your Turn, will work for Jack, bringing him points. Suddenly someone knocked on Jack's door. Someone outside the door said they heard strange noises. It was 200 on the street. Jack didn't understand who needed to come to him late at night. Maybe this was another trump card in the game. But in this case, some information would appear in his notebook. It turned out that his neighbor, who had recently moved here, was outside the door. He said that he wanted to visit him during the day. But it didn't work out, and now he heard some noise and came. Opening the door, Jack said that everything was fine and nothing had happened. The new neighbor asked Jack to accept his family's signature dish as an introduction. Jack was not very keen on accepting it. Therefore, observing the rules of etiquette, I accepted his gift and mentally said that I would buy him something too. After which the neighbor said that he would go home, so they parted ways. When Jack closed the doors, he immediately left the package with the dish on the table. And he said that he really wanted to sleep, because today he had a rather difficult day. Jack asked Olivia and Little Eye if they wanted to eat it. But when they saw what was in the package, they immediately said that they would not eat it. Evelyn said that the case of the dead child was closed and handed over the dossier, and if the gentleman had questions, he could ask them to the special department. The man thanked her, after which Evelyn was about to leave, but he stopped her and said that there was something else he wanted to ask her. It was Sheriff Kai. He wanted to ask about something about the special department. His question was unusual. Even Evelyn didn't expect to hear this. He asked her if she knew if he had children. Evelyn asked him what kind of question this was it really some kind of bad joke? He apologized, after which he said that every day he was haunted by some strange sensations. Only they don't have children, but from somewhere in their house, they found a room for a teenager. At first he thought that they had prepared a room for us as their future children. There were snacks, magazines, a computer and clothes, the room of a boy about 16 to 17 years old. Evelyn was surprised. It turns out this guy was a student. One day, Jack was just calmly walking down the street. He was caught off guard by the Department of Public Safety. The guy admitted that he was not ready to meet them, even after everything that happened. When Jack had already calmed down, he decided to ask them what was the matter, what they needed from him. Eric asked him if he knew a guy named Derek. He was a former member of the ghost community, of which Jack himself was a member. The guy said that he really knew him, after which Evelyn immediately asked him if he could tell them about him, because he had gone missing. Jack insisted that they discuss everything at home, because it was not entirely convenient outside. The people from the department said that this place would be perfect and there was no need to go home. Jack continued to insist on his own. He said that otherwise he would not tell them anything. Then he asked them to give him an official document confirming his absence from school. Ultimately, they agreed with Jack, after which they all went to his house together. Evelyn said that despite the fact that they caught him off guard at the beginning of the dialogue, Jack pulled himself together instantly. Then she added that he was just a student, but he could already boast of his intelligence, and, in addition, his spiritual strength. What bothered her was that his spiritual power was at rank 3. Already in the apartment itself, Jack said that he would answer all their questions, but first he would ask a few of his own. Mentally, he admitted that he had quite a bit of experience, but he had already managed to figure something out. It just so happened that they had already come to his house. Jack asked them, they are not from the department, but from the special department, right? The guys, except Evelyn, were surprised that the guy somehow found out about this. And Jack realized that, judging by the expression on their faces, he had indeed guessed right. He said that in the end there are a lot of strange things going on in the world, and such an organization is simply necessary for people. After which Jack said that the glass that Eric cracked cost 1,000 yuan, he asked for the money to be returned to him. Evelyn admitted that the guy was really not bad. Then she said that they were indeed from a special department, but what was more important was how much the guy knew about them. She said that she was contacting Jack about a serious matter. Evelyn added that the guy is strong and smart enough, so you can't take him lightly, but otherwise instant death will come. She immediately asked Jack if he had seen the photo of the eyeball. Jack pretended that he did not understand what he was talking about, and then asked to answer his question. Jack said that while she was talking to him, he would maintain a dialogue. Evelyn mentally praised the guy, because he was truly a powerful man.